Hey there, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. Join Brittany as she interviews incredible people whose stories will uplift you and remind you the life you long for is just ahead. Buckle up for an inspirational ride to your best life. Take it away, Britt.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. So excited to have you today. And as we step into a bunch of new recordings in 2025, I know that you are just going to be totally overwhelmed and excited by every single guest that we have. And what's super special is that these are the guests that we're actually going to be launching into our YouTube experience. So you'll now be able to see us on YouTube and listen to us, audio wherever you listen to podcasts. And it's just like kind of big girl panty moment for me. Like, this is really, really awesome. I love that these episodes are going to inspire you. And I just pray that today will be one of those times that you will feel blessed and just feel like if this guest can do it, you can do it too. And you're going to hear a lot of, I'm genuinely excited. I haven't been able to have a long conversation with this friend. So I'm going to jump in and introduce her. She is a sister, an aunt, a daughter, a friend, a higher education international student advisor. She's a world traveler. It's like the thing that you know about her. She's an advocate for immigrants and refugees, lover of animals. Most importantly, she is a sister in Christ. So please welcome Amrine Obermueller. Oh my gosh, I mess up your name. I do it every time. Obermueller, right? Did I say it right? I'm the worst. Obermueller. Yeah. I can't do everything. Also, it's the one name. Your name scares me sometimes because I'm like, your first name I got down, it's good. But your last name, I do everything to not mess it up and I still mess it up.
That's okay. The first name is the most important.
It is. Well, thank you for coming on the Brittany Wheeler Show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. And like I said, we haven't been able to really chat. So this is also like kind of selfish for us too.
Yeah, it's
been a while. This next segment I passed to the guests and I asked for those that know me to share a story of how we met. And then there's a bunch of new guests that will be coming on that don't know me because they're referrals. And so they're actually going to be asked to share, if they feel comfortable, like why they said yes to the show. But you know me. So I'm going to have you share, a story of us or how we met and really just give the audience some context for who Brittany and Amrine are.
Sure. Yeah. So we work together at Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., where neither of us no longer live. And we worked across the hall from each other in different departments, but we actually started talking in the bathroom because somehow we drank the same amount of liquids throughout the day. And every single time we both went to the bathroom, we were both there. And so we just started to,
so true,
notice each other and finally started to have a conversation. And then we went out across I believe it was Busboys and Poets, and then had a wild night back when we both were drinking.
Yes.
So from there, a friendship blossomed, and you invited me to church a couple times. We would coffee and now we stayed in touch where you're in North Carolina, I'm in Colorado, and I'm able to be on your show.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm like visualizing the bathroom meetups because after a while we were like, stop. Like we were just like, we didn't plan it. And then I think a couple of times, I feel like a couple of times, like people got intertwined in it. Like they would also be, but they would be in our interaction. So like I would come in or you would come in and be like, oh my gosh, not again. And someone's like, what? And then they would be involved in this bathroom moment that we were having together because we worked right down the hall. Yeah. And it was just cool. I think for me, I had Antoine on this past June. So if you haven't listened, he was on. Yeah, he was. My gosh, give that boy a mic. And he is next level. It was so good. And it was one of those moments where I got some healing from that conversation, but also like you and him were really like two of the only people that I could trust in that space. And just a lot of healing had to be done after I left. And I just remember like our friendship is so special to me because of just the constant that you were in that time and how I just was truly being faced with some of the hardest things I'd ever had to navigate professionally and spiritually and emotionally. And, you were just such a gift and like a safe space. And we both kind of like back and forth. I feel like at times needed each other differently. And it was really cool.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
grateful that we met there.
Me too. Me too. And then what was really awesome is like, I left Catholic and then 2022 went into sobriety and you went into sobriety right around the same time. And
Yeah.
it was just a really cool experience to get to like share like the drunk moments, but also to be like, yeah, girl, look where we are now.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I'm
Because
glad that I
always
get
get
to know
that.
both sides of you.
Yes, same. And I'm excited for the audience to get to hear a little bit more about you and just who you are. And I know sobriety is going to be part of that journey, but it's just incredible to see you thriving and just kind of literally getting to be now who I saw you to be back then. And just getting to be just the most authentically you version that's not riddled with all the things that came, right? That needed to come from healing, but also that came with, being an alcoholic at the time. So it's an honor, honestly, to have you on the show. Seriously.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, so you grew up in a flyover state. Let's be real. You grew up in Kansas. So living in a small town in Kansas, like how did you become this bilingual world traveler?
So growing up, I don't know where it came from. No one in my family is like this, but I've had just this like desire to know the world, to be able to communicate with other cultures. Like I was obsessed, even like as in middle school, I wanted to know all about like, I would read the encyclopedia when we had to go to the libraries back then for that. And I just would read all about other countries. And then when I got to high school and, had a little more independence, I got a job, my first job. There was a lot of Latinos there, and I got to know them and like let them know I was trying to learn Spanish. And they would give me burned CDs of Spanish music. And so that's where I was first introduced to Spanish music. And anyone that's learning a language, listening to the music of the countries of wherever they speak the language, that is key. That helped me so much to learn a language. And so it started with burned CDs, and then I went to college and I got my degree in Spanish, and I just kind of immersed myself. I became obsessed. I went to anything related to Spanish when I was in college. I immersed myself with the international students. If you're speaking the language, even if I'm in a flyover state in the middle of Kansas, there are people that speak other languages. And so I found it. I went and looked for it. I wasn't going to be able to get where I am today without, having the desire for it and really pursuing it. And since then, it's just grown. Like I now have a second job, a part-time job where I work with asylum seekers, where I speak 100% Spanish in the job.
So
and
cool.
If you would have told like 16-year-old me that I would be employed and paid to speak Spanish and help people, I would have thought you were crazy. Like, no, there's no way. I would never do that. I'm not confident enough. I'm too shy. But I'm doing it now, and I'm like, I'm so proud of myself when I think about it. But I just went for it. Like I pursued it. I knew I wasn't meant to stay in Kansas forever. I knew my heart was needed to be other places. I needed to explore. I needed to see the world. So I took every opportunity I could, and I worked really hard for it because it's not going to come to me in Kansas. I had to go out searching for it.
Yeah. And I would say that's one of the things I loved about you. And you're someone on my list. Like when I'm traveling, I'm like, okay, you're like the top person to text. I'm like, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. Because you traveled so much, but also you've just done it so like immersed in culture, like not immersed in like the fancy must-haves of a trip, right? Like the very trivial things. And I just think that's incredible because it leads you to be like this super well-rounded, like just like compassionate person, right? Because you get to see things and experience music and art and all of that. And again, just being someone that you worked really hard for it. Like, okay, share with because I've heard several stories, obviously, but share with the audience, like maybe one of your favorite examples of like what it took to travel internationally, because you traveled like handfuls and handfuls of times.
Well, I've been to, I believe it's now 38 countries. My goal is to go to every single one before I die, but there's a lot.
There's no but. There's no but. There's no but. Okay, so I would say the only caveat is obviously if like you would die because you got there, right? Like, Russia has always been on my list of places to go and visit before all this happened. Everybody thought I was crazy. And then the Russian people come out and they're like, oh my gosh, we want life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And now everybody's like, wow, these Russian
Yeah.
people are great. I'm like, yeah, where were you when I was saying that? And I was being called crazy. Like, get out of
Yeah.
here. So obviously, if you have a chance of dying, probably not going there right now, but I think you could do them all.
Yeah. I mean, I went backpacking for 2 years, and that required like having faith to leave a job and just saving a bit of money. And it actually spent less while traveling than I did my day-to-day American life, like $18,000 for 2 years to live on, to see the world, to, eat all the delicious foods of all the countries. And you don't have to have the fancy things. You don't have to go to the resorts. You won't catch me at a resort unless one of my besties is getting married at a resort. You will not catch me there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you won't really get to know the culture, the people, which is really why I travel. I want to get to know the world. Like I want to get to know other people's perspectives. I want to see what they eat and why they eat it and the traditions behind it and all of those things. And yeah.
Gosh, so cool. It's interesting because you said that about like traveling inexpensively. And I have a friend here in North Carolina who just got back from backpacking as well. And she was like, honestly, like everyone is so certain that it's expensive. And it's like when you set aside money and you put it down to like your flight, once you get there, also just be super creative, and super like she was telling me how I think she was over in New Zealand, Australia. And she like some guy wanted like couldn't he was a working professional and she like made the meal, like made dinners for him, and like he paid her to do that and she got free food, and then like pick up random odds and end jobs. Like it wasn't like there wasn't a lot of red tape, I feel like, is what she made it seem,
Yeah.
where here there's a whole process of things you have to go through to be able to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did something like that for 6 weeks in Nicaragua. I just, mixed some drinks behind a bar at a hotel, made up some beds, and I got free lodging and food, rice and beans. That's more than you need though. But I had the beach right there for 6 weeks and I didn't pay a thing. So there's opportunities out there. It's just the average American sees travel one certain way with all the luxuries, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. And I love, so coming here to North Carolina, like the southern area, I don't know if it's all, but like here, I really was opened to this system of bartering. And I feel like we, we think of bartering as like, I'll give you 1 cattle for your sheep. Like, no, like that's not it. It's like, what do you have that's valuable? What do they have that's valuable? And let's exchange, right? And so this podcast came to life because I met a person who had a studio who also had a business. Him and his wife had a business. And he said, I just didn't have the money, to invest in a studio time. And he said, okay, why don't you consult? I was at the time a small business advisor. He's like, why don't you work with my wife and help her with the business and you can have studio time? And so that's really what comes to mind for me. Like in your experience, like, oh, you traded lodging for work. Like that's all, like we have 2 values here that will benefit each other mutually, which is powerful, obviously. And I think there's a lot of people that are our age and young and potentially like younger and maybe a little older that are definitely set on, well, the only way I can travel is X, right? And something that could be fear of the unknown, fear of trying something new. But there's just also like, I think for you, there's just like this fire, right? Of like getting to go and just be immersed.
Yeah.
So I was originally going to ask you like, how has your childhood shaped your dreams and your goals today? But I kind of want to flip that a little bit because I feel like you kind of shared a little bit how your childhood shaped even you thinking the way you do. What I would love to know now that you've come this far is what are some of the things you kind of hinted on a little bit, but like, what would you say are a couple of things that you've accomplished and you are thinking, wow, like you said, if my 16-year-old self or things you've been able to do that you look back and be like, yeah, this was a dream or it was far exceeding my dreams.
I never thought I would get my master's. I went from Kansas to a small town in Vermont and got a master's in international education. I never would have thought that. And then what comes with education, right, is student loans. Everyone our age knows about that. And I actually am blessed to say that I paid mine off in 3 years, which is, I know, unheard of, but I will say it was a lot of work. Like, I am someone that if I have a goal, I'm going to work so hard at it and I'm going to complete it. And so paying off my student loans, which was $85,000 in 3 years. And I worked in education. And anyone that works in education knows that we do not make a lot. Yeah. So I had to be very creative living in Washington, D.C., worked very hard, had several jobs, but I did it. And now I'm debt free.
It's amazing.
Which, at 37, I don't know anyone that has gone to like undergrad and master's that has really paid it off yet. So that's a huge accomplishment for me. And then mentioning before, I have a job where I get to speak Spanish. Like, all my meetings are in Spanish, all the emails. I did a presentation a couple weeks ago, all in Spanish. Right now it's remote because I live in Colorado now and the job was in DC. But when I was in DC, I was, conversing with incoming migrants. And if I didn't know the word, I had to figure it out because they're right there and I'm there to help them. So never would have thought I would have been in a situation like that. Super proud of myself.
Yeah.
I've moved a lot. I have lived in 5 different states and I've always done it. Like, I figured it out on my own. I got there and I can say everywhere I have done, I've been able to create a community because I know that's is what helps me thrive. If I don't have community, I am not okay. I am depressed. I am sad. Like, I cannot thrive without other people. And so it's always been a goal. Every time I move somewhere, I create a community. I find people no matter what that looks like.
Yeah. In the bathroom.
In the bathroom. Absolutely. You never know. I have met people in the most random places. And
Yeah.
It's all about, like, I have learned a long time ago that if you don't, no one will. So, like, if you don't ask the invite, if you don't, say hi, most likely someone else isn't going to, and then that will never go anywhere. So, like, I try really hard to always be that person that texts first, and I'm okay with that because things can come from that.
Yeah. And I also think too, that posture of like being open, I feel like, and we're going to share our journey of faith, like, a little bit, but I think one of the things that I've loved about myself, I've always been this way, but even more recently, becoming a believer, like, I just see possibilities everywhere, even more than I did before. And so I think about all the places that, I'm in the grocery store or I say hi, or, I'm at a coffee shop. The reason why I have this podcast is because I was sitting, I wasn't even supposed to be at this coffee shop. Like, I randomly went there. Like, it was not intentional. I stumbled there. The girl was sitting across from me, our age, like, thought she was going to a smoothie shop. It wasn't that. She's my first guest on the show. You can scroll back. And we literally were sitting in this children's like focused coffee shop that had all these kids things. This kid's trying to barter me a plastic carrot with my AirPods. And I was like, no, bro, this isn't it. Like, not the same value that we were just talking about a minute ago. And we both started chit-chatting, and like, she had a podcast and she was an author. And I was like, oh, yep. Okay. Keep telling me more. And if I wouldn't have been open to have those conversations and just like literally, it's not just about your mindset. I think something that I've learned about you too is like your posture, your body language, right? If you're hunched over and you're like closed off, if you're in a bathroom, no one's going to want to talk to you. But if you're smiling and you're open, right? And that's how you are, and that's how you interact with people. And I think that's the difference between, meeting the love of your life and having the career you desire and traveling the world. Is just your willingness to see the possibilities around you and the people that you may need to know to get to those places, which is like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Transitioning a little bit. So one of the things that we talk about on the podcast is choosing your hard. And choosing your hard is the practice of, you're at this crossroad moment and both decisions are hard for whatever reason, loading the dishwasher, that could be challenging, but so could like not loading the dishwasher, or Chick-fil-A versus the salad. There's so many examples. So, ultimately the crossroad, the decision that you choose at the end of that season leads you to the best version of yourself. So share with us a crossroad moment that comes to mind for you.
So I have a lot of these. So it was kind of hard to.
You could say a couple. You don't have to hold on just
down.
one.
I will say I'll start with a general, like, everyday one that I share with a lot of people, and I actually use that phrase a lot with like coworkers and stuff. Like, you just got to choose your heart. But I frame it as like, I also have to take care of future Amrine, whether it's hard now.
Yeah.
So I always frame it that way of like, how can I take care of future me? So whether it's like meal prepping or like getting gas, even though I don't want to, but I know in the morning I'm going to be too tired, or like things like that, of just like, what can I do now that might be harder that would take care of future me? But that's an everyday thing. But the example I thought about was moving to Colorado, which is where I'm based now. So I was living in DC and had a community there. I had, the title. I was an assistant director. I was working in like, a dream job, working 2 full-time jobs, really, getting through sobriety. And those moments were hard, but it still was really hard to choose to move, because when I moved to DC, I told myself, like, this is it. This is where you're going to like finally settle down. You've moved around too much. Like, you need to just stay put and figure out a life somewhere. And I really thought it was going to be DC. But at 5 years in, I realized I was at a crossroad of like, am I going to continue to stay here and do the same thing over and over? And, it was hard, but it was like, that was my life. It was easy. I was figuring it out. I had like people to lean on, whatnot. Or was I meant for something else? And I will say that this was the first time where I had prayed in a really long time, which is super powerful, because when I was in DC, I mean, like, I went to church a couple times with you, but I was not in my faith at all.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up Lutheran. I, grew up knowing God, but I didn't have a relationship with him. And this was the first time that I actually like leaned on him in prayer. And I saw the results. Like, I got 2 job offers to Denver, and I had been applying to jobs for like 2 years and I was getting nothing. So, choosing to go from a life that I'd set up, I had my own dog business. I had a lot of work. So I could have like spent my time doing a lot of work. I created businesses, I created friendships, community. I had the title I wanted, which I was really hung up on for a long time. Like, that was actually really hard to let go of, because now my title is just international student advisor, but I'm okay with that. Like, I chose to move to a place where I didn't know anyone. I knew no one, which I've done before, but I guess as you get older, it's a little harder.
Yeah.
Moving in your later 30s. So I chose to do that. And when I moved here, I didn't have anywhere to stay. Like, I didn't have an apartment set up, but I figured it out. And the decision of moving here, even though it was hard, like, I have seen all the blessings from doing it instead of just continuing to stay in what I knew. Now I have my own faith. I am going to church every week. I have a huge community in the church. I have a work-life balance, which I did not know what that was for 5 years. So if I work 7 to 3:30, which is a dream schedule for me. So like in the summer after work, I can go for a hike. Like, I would never be able to do that in DC. No. So even though it was hard in the moment to finally make that decision, I'm definitely so glad I did. And so glad that I finally put my faith in God and actually leaned on him. And it was like, what am I supposed to do? Just tell me. And here I am.
I could cry. I was like, literally, like, tears were almost coming out, because I just remember like that season of life was just so like, there was so much friction. And if you didn't know you wouldn't have seen it, right? Like, that's only something that you knew if you had a close relationship. And I just remember, like, whether it was like the back and forth at the end of giving up alcohol, right? Or it was, previous relationships. It just felt like, or it was even like working at Catholic. And I'll tell you, and I tell everybody, like, it was the hardest, most like toxic job I ever had, but I learned so much because of it. I wish I didn't have to have gone through all that I did, but like it was the first time in my life where God was working really intentionally. And there was a lot of spiritual enemy warfare going on that I had never experienced before. And like you said about like a stressful, like work balance job, I remember leaving Catholic, um, and within like 2.5 weeks, I had like randomly decided to get on the scale and I had lost 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember that.
oh my gosh, that's right. I came into your office after. You're
Like,
like,
you
oh my gosh. You're like, wait, you look amazing. I was like, it's the cortisol. It's
my
working.
girl, yes, I've experienced that.
I was like, I didn't even know it was such a thing. But again, like, I love for anybody that's listening, like, you hear that like nothing bad was going on. Like, it wasn't like you were like, oh gosh, I have to move because there's no job, there's no success, there were all the right reasons for you to stay, right?
Mhm.
Truthfully. And what I love about this segment and what happens most of the time is that there isn't any wrong thing happening. It's just the call for something better. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like
That's
it,
beautifully said.
it's just the call for something better. And it takes getting uncomfortable. And, you know, I love Glenn Powell in Twisters. He like talks about like ride in fear. And I like love the analogy because I'm like, fear doesn't go away. You just learn how to wrangle it. You know,
Mhm.
you learn how to do it alongside of fear because it's not going to go away. And in this case, moving, like you were, gosh, like you've already done it. So it's funny because most people are like, oh my gosh, I'd be fear of moving. You were like, it wasn't fear of moving. I was fear of leaving all that I created, right? And all
Yeah.
that I'd worked so hard for. And that's most of the opposite for people. Their fear of leaving and like moving that the whole process. You were like, oh, did it, done it. Like I'll do it again. It's crazy. And it's been beautiful. And I think, you know, you just shared towards the end of like when I finally, you know, kind of asked God to come into this. And you know, I'd love to know now, obviously, and there's going to be so many instances that like we won't even be able to dive into because there's so many beautiful nuances of your story. But as a believer now, like how's God using you in this season in ways that, you know, you couldn't imagine? Like what is happening now?
So the biggest thing right now is I'm actually volunteering at my church. I go to Red Rocks, which has several locations. It's a pretty big church in Colorado. But I'm actually on Wednesday nights volunteering with middle schoolers and high schools. And if you would have asked Amrine in DC to use her time to volunteer, I would have been like, time is money. I can't be bothered.
Hashtag real life.
They're, gotta hustle. So
Yeah.
the fact that I spend so many hours like at church, with these girls that I'm leading, which is crazy. I didn't ever think I'd be with 8th graders,
They're
at
like
all.
they're
And
like
we,
the coolest, uncertain, lost, but yet profound, but yet wise, but yet all over the place individuals. Like there's very few people. I feel more comfortable sometimes around middle schoolers than I do grown up adults. Like there's just I don't know what it is, and maybe you feel the same way. But like I'm just like I get you. I get it. I get it.
yeah, definitely have been learning a lot from that. So I didn't expect that when I moved here. I did not expect to be so involved in my church. I did not expect to like be volunteering. I didn't expect to be so involved in sobriety groups now. Like I have started to plan sobriety events like around the country, and like one I'm doing, like I did a retreat here in Denver, and then I planned a sobriety retreat-ish to like do a Tough Mudder in Austin. And I feel like I'm still figuring that out, but I feel like there's something there. Like I feel like what I went through to get sober and my passion for sobriety and how life is so much better with it. I feel like there's something there with community. I just haven't like quite figured it out yet, but so far it's been successful of the two that I've done, but I think there's something there. But yeah, God is definitely working in my life since I finally have been like, I'm here. What do you want with me? I definitely feel called to stay in Colorado. Like at least for the time, the indefinite future, unless he tells me differently.
which
So,
which sometimes he does or he doesn't tell you.
yeah,
He
I mean,
doesn't. Sometimes like, for me in particular, I'm like, okay, just tell me, because like you're not telling me anything and I'm going crazy. Like, this is insane. But that's a big deal, right? For you to feel like, I feel like, even as you were sharing before, of like, your decision to stay in DC was yours. Now your decision to stay in Colorado was, okay, I'm making it, but I'm releasing myself of it, right? Like, if you do want me somewhere different, God, you make it happen, because like that's not happening. And it's interesting, I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and it's something, I don't know if it's been shared with you, but a lot of the times we have this, like, obviously this hustle culture, create. And I was sharing with you offline, like, my experience of like really being present and trusting in God as he provides. Because when we create out of our own two hands without him, then it's up to us to maintain it.
mm-hmm.
But when we do it alongside, in collaboration and partnership with him, and he gives it and brings it to us, it's up to him to maintain. And you and I are businesswomen. That's just really smart. Like,
Yeah.
work smarter and not harder, right? So even as it relates to like your future in Colorado, you're like, okay, yeah, like, I'll give it to you, God. I'm excited you mentioned sobriety events, and I think that's super incredible for two reasons. Number one, I'm interviewing a girl that I met super randomly through a guest I'm interviewing in a couple weeks, and her name is Carolina, and she is the author of Euphoric AF, and it's euphoric alcohol free. And I'm really excited to hear her story and to chat more with her and to have her on, because again, like, she's doing a lot in the space of alcohol free. And I think there's so much more room for it. So I want you to keep going and keep me informed, and like what I'll have you share any information at the end that we need to know about, so that people here can follow along or get more information. And in my own journey, I have found myself like, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So when we were drinking, we put in all the effort into drinking. Those qualities weren't going to change. It's just what we were using them for, right? And
Yeah.
so now, like, I'm using it for the non-alcoholic movement, right? And the past 2 years, 3 years, I was advocating for small businesses to create space for non-alcoholic beverages, and not just Coke, soda, and milk. Like actually spirits, or bubblies, or things like that, because I was trying to show them, like, hey, you can make just as much money, right? Like, you're going to increase your sales by creating space for a huge group of people. And so I love that we both like took that energy and put it into something, forward moving, productive,
Absolutely.
and really focused, which is, I don't know, definitely like a blessing that comes from that and sobriety. Looking back over your, the teen years, early 20s, one of the things that I had the opportunity to do myself was, when I moved to Wilmington, I spent like the first 3 to 5 months writing my book. And it was huge therapy. It was my journey to sobriety, and interwoven the story of God in it. And I really went back, very far back in childhood and young adulthood, and for the first time being postured as someone that knows God and has a relationship with Jesus, I was like, oh my gosh, he was there. Oh my gosh, that was because of him, and getting to see the moments where I wouldn't have recognized God back then, but like now I can clearly see, like, oh, he was working on my behalf. So, looking back at your own life, where, like, can you see moments? Do you have instances where you could see now that he was working on your behalf?
I mean, I can definitely see when, as I mentioned, when I was trying to leave DC, like, I had never thought of Colorado ever. It's in the middle of the country. It's right next to Kansas. It's right next to Flyover State, which I left at like 20 as soon as I could. I had no plans to go back there, and that hunger and desire to find a different type of job, it really was fueled by, I wanted more money. right? It was fueled by a different desire. And God was like, nope, it's actually going to move somewhere, not have a pay increase, but your life is going to be so much better. And you don't even know what it's going to look like. You have no idea. My, most of my 20s and early 30s, I was drinking. That was all I did. And I didn't really start to come back to faith until I moved to Colorado. So, like, Colorado is so important to me, like this journey moving here, because that's where I found God again. I really believe I was not going to find it in DC. There was too much money to be made. There was too much hustling. Like,
A lot of
that was
noise.
my
A lot of
idol.
noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, sometimes, like, in DC, it was really hard to have your faith and also have your beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So, moving to Colorado where I could be more with nature and have a slower life, like I can really figure out myself and like, what do I believe in? How does my faith interact with that and all of that? And so I think the biggest key is God has been working for me to get out of the East Coast and the hustle of that, because I was hungry for it. Like you said, like, we are businesswomen. Like, I have goals, I'm gonna make something of myself. And if I'm in a place that like supports that and thrives it, and that's all you hear, that's all I was gonna ever be focused on.
Yeah.
So definitely moving here. And I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it until I started going to church. And, I got baptized in November. And, I did my testimony. And so really just like reflecting on how I got here, it's like, wow, all right, yeah, I'm meant to be here. This is where God needs me to be and wants me to be. And he's working on me.
Yeah. And I just think he's honoring you by all these beautiful things that he keeps putting in your life. It's not like, oh, hey, go to this place and just like suffer, or go to this place and deal with it. No, like, it's just fruit after fruit after fruit. And that's as a result of you honoring the risk, honoring the uncomfortable. And I mean, I agree with you. Like, I will say that I, Catholic played a huge part in the catalyst towards, I was introduced to Christians in 2014. So the journey back to Christ was probably about overall like a 9-year journey. No, 7-8 year journey. But it was Catholic University and working there and being okay to talk about God and being okay to like, the students that we worked with, they were incredible. And to be honest, they really kind of like, were like, oh, you're not doing this. You should do more. You could be better. And not in obviously like a mean way, but just by them living it out. And I was like, okay, I need to be all of these kids, because they're like 12 and they're extremely talented, passionate individuals in all cases. I don't think I ever really met someone I didn't like that I worked with. But they wanted to talk about it. And so I think it was a beginning safe space of like, what is this thing, in a more serious way? I'd been introduced to it as well. And so, like, I bet you, even in your space, as you think back, like, there was a safety in Catholic, in a sense of like, not necessarily pursuing him, but you weren't necessarily like, wasn't not allowed, if that made sense. And maybe you had a different experience than I did at the university.
Yeah,
but
I definitely had a different experience.
Okay.
Like, the office I worked in, definitely not there because they're believing God. We're there to serve our students and create a safe space for our students, which is important, right? So we didn't really serve many Christian or Catholic students, right? We had the individuals that were coming to study that, mostly from Nigeria, but all the other students were not. And so my job, like, felt very isolated at Catholic, actually. So I never really got that experience until my last year there, when I went on a Habitat for Humanity trip with, American students, and, they prayed at dinner and talked about God. And that actually, now that I think about it, was like, oh, that was like a stepping stone, because I got curious and I shared that with them too. I was like, I'm not really, this is kind of like a stepping stone for me. So I guess that was a point that pushed me forward that I didn't really think about. Maybe that's what happened first. And then I started to pray, but at the time I just saw it as a free trip to Montana. Like,
why not?
Yeah, sign me up. That's
done.
perfect for me.
Say less, Campus Ministries. I'll be there in a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it turned out more than that. So we didn't have the same experience. And yeah, but I'd say near the end I definitely got like a little bit of it. I got to see what, the majority of the students at Catholic were like. And it was different. It was different, but I think it was definitely a stepping stone for me.
Yeah. And I
Where
will
I am
say
now.
that um I remember when I was hired, I was asked like, "Are you Catholic?" And then I was like, "I was baptized." Like, "Okay, that's good." Like that was the prerequisite. And I again, I think my story of having that safe space was ultimately like the same theme of what you've been sharing, which is like I kind of created it in that sense. Like I
Mhm.
remember like it was not my bosses, it was not the office. Honestly, like, and one of my colleagues was, there were a couple that were, but it wasn't the norm. And it was really the students, like genuinely the students. And I think Antoine and I, we had started the Bible. We actually had to go ask Father
I
Jude if we
remember
could
that.
start a Bible study because it was a Catholic church. We just wanted to honor, what needed to happen. Um, and that they were great about it. But that was again like us creating it, right? And I
Mhm.
think that is something that I have had the experience to learn in my life, is that we have to be very careful. And there's so many things, I could spend hours talking about this, but there's so many things as Christians that we just assume because it's the way it is. And so you look at a faith-based institution, regardless of whether it's higher education or whether it's a nonprofit, and we assume, right, that everybody in there is walking with God or is a person of faith. And that's not the case. And in fact, I talk about it. I've talked about it a lot, of like one of my colleagues who, I swear, like just a very broken person that incarnate a lot of evil, like just hurtful things that I couldn't imagine ever being done to me because I just didn't deserve that. And so it was the first time where I ever found myself in scripture, like praying Psalms every single day to like cast away like this pain. But it was where I learned that in faith-based spaces, we have to be just as vigilant as believers
Mhm.
because the enemy is just as much there as he is in other spaces. And so I think there's this misconception that it's happening right, or there's not evil. And the reality is we're human. We are broken people. And so we just
Yeah.
can't assume. It's not how it works. And so I've talked about it in different podcasts, how like I felt like at Catholic, especially sometimes in faith-based institutions, it's like Voldemort just like is the enemy just like coasting around, right? Like ready to attack. Yeah, and it's frustrating, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I'm glad that you had this epiphany that campus ministries, you know, served and kind of was the catalyst. And it was funny because uh, one of the biggest events that I planned was Cardinal Palooza by Campus
Mm.
Ministries.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, I didn't understand it back then, but I remember one time, Father Jude had come to me and he was like, "Yeah, you know what? It's all going to work out. It's all going to be all right." And I was like, "No, it's not. You need to blah, 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 blah." And of course, I didn't have this faith. Like, I didn't have this understanding, right? And I was like, how is he just so cool, chill, walking around? Like, I don't get it. You need to have a plan. And now
Mm.
I'm like, all right, Father Jude, I see you. I will raise you to discipleship because I am doing that now. And I understand when people are like, what do you mean? You just can't be like, it's going to all work out. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to not do anything. Right. But then once I've done my part, I have to release it and give it to God.
Mhm.
And Father Jude didn't explain that. Like that part
Yeah.
I was left alone with, which is, I was like, oh, okay. So obviously sharing your journey with sobriety, which is so inspiring and so profound because like I just I know that just the hurdles and the pain and the anxiety and all you experience as a result of that. And it's another choose your hard moment. Like it's a hard decision to do, you know? Um and yet like you like this is not a question that I wrote down, but like, how do you feel now? Obviously, physically, like I know I should, but like, what's your timeline of being sober? And how are you processing everything? How are you feeling? Like, what is life like just sober versus where you were X amount of years ago?
Yeah. In May, I'll have 3 years of sobriety.
So cool. I forget. We
Um,
are literally almost to the day. Like, I think we're like
oh,
20 days apart because I was May 1st.
oh, I'm May 2nd.
Okay. So we're literally a day
We're
apart.
literally 1 day apart. Wow. I didn't
This-
realize that.
I didn't either. I did not either. Oh my gosh, we're 1 day apart. See, oh gosh, so cool. So I'll be 3 years, you'll be 3 years. That's
That's
amazing.
amazing. I love that. I did not know that
Gosh,
detail of us.
me neither.
Wow.
I thought it was like weeks apart. Like, I don't know why, or month. Like, I didn't think it was a day. 24
Yeah,
hours. And then look at how God is like interweaving us and like bringing us back together. Just
absolutely.
so cool. So cool.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'll have 3 years. I would say the biggest change is I have peace and I don't try to control everything. Right? Like my faith obviously now is very intertwined in that of like giving it to God, let go and let God, as they say in the AA rooms. I do go to AA, so that helps me a lot. But my life just has a lot more peace and I don't try to control things or other people. I just live my life and that's it. Like I know it sounds so simple. It's
No.
not. Like it took a lot to get here.
Yeah.
But I've never really felt peace before. Like I've never really felt like calm and like just peace is the only word I can use to describe it. Like, yeah, my body feels great. My skin's great, from not drinking and all that sugar. I used to think I didn't like sugar, but actually I just liked the wine, which had sugar. So I learned that when getting
For
sober.
real.
I was like, oh, I do like sugar.
Yeah, I do. I just drank it like mostly
Yeah, just
in
drink
wine.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, I've been in therapy for the entire time I've been sober.
Wow.
And, that's been hard, but really helpful. Like I have a lot of trauma and demons from my life that I never touched. Like I ran away from them. Like the reason I moved a lot was I literally was running away from my problems, but guess what? They follow you. I just didn't realize that. And so through getting sober, having therapy and having safe space to process it, like I'm finally able to like realize my emotions. And instead of running to a bottle and drinking wine all night to process if I'm angry, frustrated, if I'm happy, like I actually feel my emotions, which is amazing because I didn't feel them before. And so I experience life more now, which is not something I realized would happen with getting sober. I got sober so I wouldn't lose a guy. But then
God will use whatever. Like he's use whatever he needs to,
Yeah, but I realized very quickly, like, wait, I want to do this for me, regardless of you, whatever. I did it for me and it was hard. It was so hard, but I did it. And here I am, like almost 3 years in May. We will celebrate 3 years.
Yes.
But whatever the initial reason was, I continue to do it for me. And that's what matters. I continue to stay sober for me, for my future, whatever that looks like. And yeah, I just have way more peace than I've ever had in my life.
Gosh, that's so cool. I just love it. And I just love it because, well, for all the reasons that I mentioned before, I mean, it's so cool to know us in a season and then to be like, wow, look at all the awesome things we're doing. And it's funny because I tell people often, I was like, if you want a weight loss story, y'all, like, just quit drinking because I lost 9 inches at like month 3. And I had already lost 100 pounds of gastric bypass. I was never expecting to lose inches on my body, and then it just got better from there. And, for me, what I've really like, and I wonder, I'd love to know this for you, but there's just like peace 1000%. Yes. Cause I'm also not questioning myself. Right. I feel like when I was drinking and if I blacked out, it was like questioning who I hurt. What did I say? Right. And then I'm riddled with anxiety and like hurting somebody. And it just was this constant state of like discomfort. Yeah. But I feel like I have a mental capacity that I never had before. Like I also take mushroom powder because that's just responsible. But I feel like I've regained so much like mental capacity. I think I was losing, no lie, I feel like I was losing my hearing towards the end and I got clarity back in that. And I mean, I'll call those crazy things, right? But like what do you feel like mentally? Obviously you're feeling the feels, and I will say the same thing too. Like I was just telling a friend of mine today, like, listening to my body. I barely take Tylenol now. Like the only time I was taking Tylenol back in the day was to cure hangovers, right?
Oh yeah.
And now I don't. I try to do everything I can, naturopathically, but like I really listen to what my body needs, and I do like that internal dialogue of like, did I drink water? Have I eaten something? How is my protein? Like what, have I gotten fresh air for the day? But again, like it's because there was nothing really like clouding my space anymore. Like it wasn't a hangover to process or the aftermath of something that I said or did. And it was like so many layers of like pain that
Mm.
when pushed aside, I had nothing to really be painful about. And it's like blown my mind. I kind of forget, like I remember that I drank and I obviously know that I'm sober, but I forget that there was any other way because I have just like, I exist so harmoniously here.
Mhm.
Like, like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely, as you were talking, I realized like I trust myself more and I actually have like confidence in myself.
Mm,
A big reason I drank is because I didn't like who I was, or I wanted to be something I was, or I wanted, had a lot of hurt. But with now not drinking, I can trust myself, like if I text someone, I'm going to remember it. And I
yeah.
can actually have a coherent sentence instead of responding emotionally. Or like, I'm not waking up to having the night before deleted text messages and having no idea what I did or who I hurt. As you mentioned, like, I can trust myself. I wake up knowing exactly what I did the night before. I can trust my own decisions. I'm not making decisions out of emotions. I'm
Right.
not making decisions out of any fear. Like, fear was a huge thing. And I'm not making decisions out of fear now.
Mm,
I'm making decisions because, I have a clear head to make them.
yeah.
Whereas when I was drinking, I didn't have that.
No. And it, like, again, I think the layers that we're getting to ourselves now are like, okay, what's next? Because, again, just sitting here, understanding my hormone health and my emotions are coming in. And yesterday I wanted to kill somebody. I was like, ah, like I was so angry, right? And like annoyed and all the things. Now, there was nothing that I wanted to choose to fill that. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'm going to huff and puff and I'm going to go sit outside on the patio and journal and get some fresh air, right? Like, who is Brittany? Like,
Yeah.
what, and today, like having extra long time in prayer time and quiet time and being outside and being grounded, like, intentionally knowing that like I want to choose these things because I know that my future self is going to be grateful. I know that it's actually going to work versus potentially choosing something superficial. And I'm not just talking about alcohol. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about anything that we could choose to create space. Like, in
Mhm.
seasons it was food. It was food for me growing up and I would eat and I am so in check with that now. And I like, even earlier I was like, I'm kind of hungry. Am I not? I went for a walk and guess what? I wasn't hungry after. And like, but again, not drinking has created that space, right? Has created that space
100%.
to hear, to trust yourself. And like, it is profound. And I mean, my story and like God asked me, is a life you long for worth drinking for? It's the only time I've ever audibly heard him. And I said no. And I more recently, I've been going back to that moment of like, for me, choosing alcohol over an abundant life that I believe God was going to give me was never going to be worth it. And then to be in this season where like I feel like we're at the precipice of some big, big shifts and big, big changes, like success. It just for the podcast and for public speaking, all these things, but they wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have made that choice to say, no, this thing isn't worth it. And you're living that out right now, personally, relationally, like getting to help other people in sobriety, right? Which, like, that part is just so cool. And I bet you it's super rewarding for you. And it's not even because everyone's an alcoholic, right? It's just because somebody wants to do something without drinking.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
that's it. What would be, obviously 3 years almost sober, um, doing all the things, AA, you found your faith, you have kind of changed your surroundings, you're surrounding yourself with probably a different set of people. What's advice? Not what's advice, what advice would you give a woman who was where you were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. What advice would you give her to
Mhm.
kind of step into sobriety or take those steps?
I would say the first thing that I did was choose myself. You know, you have to choose yourself because it's going to be hard. I lost a lot of friendships. I lost a lot of people in my life. Just completely changed locations, and through it all, I kept choosing myself. So if you want to get sober, you got to choose yourself. And then the biggest thing that's helped me is having community, and not even just sober community. Sure, that helps. You know, I have a community in AA, I have another sober community, but also just a real community of women. I've always had female friends, but I've never had female friendships like I do now when I'm sober. And I have friendships with people that drink, you know, but they know I'm sober and they were always respectful of it and celebrate me in it, you know? And community has been the biggest thing that has helped my sobriety and just me, you know, growing into who I am today. Without that community, like I had been sober for a year in DC and I was miserable. It's because I didn't have anyone. I had a relationship I was super unhappy with, and I had 3 jobs, and that was all I was doing while I was getting my first year of sobriety, and it was hell. I was so miserable, and it wasn't until I found community, which I got here in Colorado, because I looked for it in intentional spaces. I changed everything about my life, and now I have it. Community of women has been the biggest thing, and it's been worth it. Like all the changes I've had have been worth it because I am getting blessings I didn't think I would ever get, or getting treatment I never thought that I deserved, which is pretty amazing.
It's really amazing. And I love that you shared about the community piece and, even in just like my growth journey, my trajectory to here to Wilmington, it was like each time I got to a new place, the old version of myself, because I was starting new, they got to experience where I was at. Right. And so, moving from New Hampshire to DC, people got to experience Brittany as this like, smaller person experiencing more health and wellness, right? Then living in DC, there's a couple forms of me. And then moving down to Wilmington, sober me. No one knew anything different. Like I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to be like, oh, I don't want to. And it was beautiful along the way how like, yes, that community like shapes and forms as you shape and form. And
Yeah.
I look back even, for women that were there for me when I was drinking and who they saw me to be, and then to be sober and get to just honor them with that. Like I don't do it for them, but an example would be I was with my 5 best friends in, high school best friends a couple of years ago, and they're all moms, and we all went out to dinner, and I was like, oh, I'll DD. And they bought me dinner, and it was this beautiful, like circle moment, right? Where I got to claim back like that trust, claim back like, hey, I've got your back, right? Because drunk Brittany, she wasn't the worst person in the world, but she did some really crappy stuff, right? And so for these people in my life, for them to get to see, going back to Vegas for my health and wellness business, that was first time 2 years ago, claiming that back sober. I did some really dumb shit in Vegas. And to be able to go back sober, get to see it through a sober mind, sober eyes, but then to like be sober with those same women that loved me. It like, I don't think anybody can understand how we feel unless you have given up the thing you've idled or the thing that has held you chained. It doesn't have to be, sobriety of alcohol. It could be drugs. It could be porn. It could be toxic relationships. It could be disordered eating. It doesn't matter. But whatever the thing has got you chained, like claiming that back, ooh, like it's like your heart grows bigger and you didn't even know it was possible.
Yeah.
Didn't even know it was possible.
I'm getting chills.
I'm getting so pumped because I'm thinking about all of their faces are coming to my mind, and my family now jokes because it's been several years, obviously being sober, and they always joke being, oh gosh, Brittany's drinking again, like because it's funny now. It wasn't obviously funny then, but also there's this level of trust, right? That like they're not questioning, is she going to relapse? Is she going to go back to it? Because I've proven time and time again that like, look at all the things I've gone through and all the challenges and things I've had to overcome sober, and I still chose being sober. Right. And same for you. Like the first year of sobriety was really hard, and then moving out, there were many reasons you could have picked up a glass of wine, and you still chose not to. You chose for yourself, your future self. So
continually
cool.
choosing
yourself. And I literally just recorded a video like an hour ago that I'm going to post next Friday on Instagram, because the theme that has been coming up is discipline is like thinking of your future self, like loading the dishwasher, setting the coffee, right? And then obviously like the big stuff, you can't even imagine doing the big stuff. If you can't handle loading the dishwasher, why are you going to go start a business? It's going to seem completely like you're going to be incapable of it. And
so true.
And I think people are so afraid of discipline because it's hard, but for some reason being framed like, what would future tomorrow Brittany say about the fact that she gets to come home and like that thing is done, you know, or the gas? Like I do that too. Cause like, I'll be like, fine leaving it on E, but I'm like, no, my tomorrow self is going to be very grateful that I put gas in the tank.
That one I'm still working on. But, you know, I will meal prep the heck out of anything and, you know, do laundry, do anything else but the gas. Like I am still working.
Hey, you can't, we never really arrive. So you haven't quite gotten there. It's totally fine. Before we get into lifestyle questions, I just want to say thank you. This was incredible. And I really hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
You're such a treat.
Such a treat. And honestly, like I think you're the first, maybe one of, I'm going to say one of, just in case I'm missing somebody like running through but like the first person like in sobriety that I know that like I've gotten to witness. And so it's like my first like sober conversation and like alcohol conversation. And it was just really cool because I haven't talked about a lot of things on this podcast, you know, like daddy issues, trauma. Like obviously I talk about it as myself, but I haven't really had a guest that spoke about it or shared that. And so this one's been a little special for me. Just again, us coming together and getting to experience that. Yeah, super cool. Okay, so 2 lifestyle questions. What is your favorite coffee shop in the Boulder, Colorado area, and what's your go-to order?
So I actually make my coffee at home.
I knew you were going to say that because I was like, you can take the debt out of the girl, but you can't take the girl out of the debt practices.
But I will say the bougie part of me is I have my own espresso machine, and the coffee that I use is Zeke's.
Okay.
From DC. Like I will not use any other coffee.
Wow. Okay. Wow. You get Zeke sent out. That's incredible.
Well, I have mini bags that I might have brought with me I just grind. It's my favorite. So Zeke's is my all-time favorite coffee shop, and I still have it here in Colorado, and that's where my coffee comes from.
So cool. I also feel like, because I do work with a nonprofit here called Vigilant Hope, and we have a coffee shop. Now I'm like, I need to get you to try this coffee too. Because like this one's really, really and it's mission based. So like you're given for a cause. So I'm not saying I want you to stop using Zeke's, but now that I know that you're willing to, like, most people just go to the grocery store, right? But you are not that girl. So the fact that you're willing to like go across several states, there's hope that potentially the roastery could be your, and also I roasted beans for the first time. I roasted, like, I know, it was so cool. I kind of forgot I did that, honestly. I learned how to roast, and it's like super fun. It's so cool. I don't think it was Kenya. I think it was Guatemala. Yeah, it was so cool. I feel like you should, because you love to travel, like, and also to get to experience like that other layer of culture of like the growing and the green bean and like where it's coming from. I just think that like it's totally your MO.
New goal.
Added. Check and check. Okay, so what is a favorite restaurant in the area that you've been able to try so far?
I also don't have one here.
You need to try someplace.
I know. Well, I will say that I cook a lot, and so I have tons of cookbooks from around the world that I cook a lot myself. I will say also I am used to a higher standard of food from the East Coast, and there's just some flavor and spice that's lacking that I already knew would be in the middle of the country.
I'll
The
give you
only
a
place
pass
I'm
on
thinking,
that. I'll give you a pass.
the only place I'm thinking is this pizza shop that's pretty good in Netherlands, which is in the is a mountain town.
Okay.
So I would recommend that.
Okay.
Like, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's the only one in that really tiny
So
town.
I'll just Google the town and then we'll find it. Yeah.
And it's the one pizza shop.
Done.
But otherwise, I mostly used to get home.
That's fine. It's funny because I was flying into, I think it might have been Indianapolis. It might have been Kansas City, honestly. One of the two big flyover states. Anyways, and I went to get like a bowl, like a Mexican bowl, right? Which comes with like rice, beans, right? No, it was like a casserole dish slopped with cheese and dairy. And I was like, oh, I'm in casserole country. I forgot that's what a bowl actually means. Like, that's not, oh, hey, here's this really rich and flavorful. No, it was like, I couldn't even finish. I was so upset. I was like, I should have known better. Where am I? So you're just a product of your location. And you're right. Like, and also DC's got some really great food, and anything you want, you can get there. Like, that's the other thing, because there's just so many different cultures and people. So I get you. What's your favorite to cook right now? Or what are you really cooking a lot recently?
Well, it's cold, so I'm making a lot of soups and curries. I have a cookbook from Thailand, and so I took a cooking class in Thailand, and I brought the cookbook back, and so I make Penang curry, and it's so good. It's so good.
I'm like genuinely jealous. Like, now I'm hungry, and I'm like, cool, great. She lives 17,000 states away. That's not.
How many times I will make it for you?
Seriously. Oh my gosh. And I'll have to send you, on Netflix, I've really been loving the Chef's Table collection, because they have all of these chefs from all over the world. Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'll send you the link, because it's something to like just watch, because it's just so, they're, if they're speaking in their native tongue, so there's subtitles, which I love. I think that's the best part, is like getting to hear it, because also when you hear it, like you shared with music, you become more like aware of actually what's being said, versus some really weird American voice dubbing over, another language. But they go into the culture and their story and their family. I think you would love the series. Just truly, it's not only inspiring, but it gets me excited to just see what more is out there. And, again, already being open individual, but like you, like just being like, wow, all these foods, all these cultures, all these different ways. And, it's grandma's recipe passed down 6 generations. It's super, super special. So as far as, do you have anything set up for the sober gatherings that somebody could have more information about? Or is that something that you're just kind of ad-libbing right now?
Yeah, right now I'm just ad-libbing. Okay. I mean, you can always post my Instagram, which I post some things on there, but cool. I don't have anything official set up yet. It's kind of ad-libbed so far.
Cool. So what I'll do is, like, when this episode comes out, by that time, I'll check back in with you, because it'll be several months. And if something is like really more firmed up, like, I'll put that information in the show notes. And otherwise, I'll just put your Instagram in the show notes. So if you guys have questions, you can reach out and ask. And again, this was just incredible. Such an incredible conversation, truly. And I know that at least 70,000 people are going to be blessed. Not just one. Not our goal is no more one. It's just 70,000. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, you guys, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. Share this episode with men and women that come to mind that need to hear this incredible story. And as always, do good things, make me proud, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.